Hi everybody and welcome to another episode of On Air. Delighted today to be joined by Tim Hughes. Tim is the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. He's going to tell us a little bit more about that in a second. But before we do anything, I need to welcome you to the show. Tim, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Owen. It's wonderful to be here. I'm really excited. It's a wonderful day here in London, sunny and blue skies. So looking forward to it.
You can't beat that. You can't beat that. Thank you for being with us. We're going to talk today about social selling and digital transformation in sales and just explore that and pick some things out of your brain and hopefully learn from you. Before we do that, we like to dive into topic quickly on this podcast. But before we do that, we do like to give our guests 2 minutes to tell us who's Tim and who are DLA Ignite.
Okay. I'm the author of the book Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers, which is a global bestseller. We've been doing social selling and transforming sales teams for the last 7 years. And what we do is that we put digital front and center for sales teams, which is pretty much what every single business needs to be doing nowadays. The buyers moved on. But things have moved on as well. The job seeker has changed. The way that we look for suppliers has changed. So digital actually impacts the whole of the enterprise. And what we do is we help transform organizations, not just in sales, but in human resources, in procurement and that. And we're the only company in the world that does this.
Fantastic. That was really concise. It's like you've done it before. Very good stuff. All right, look, I want to start with the basics because what we find is we dig into a topic and then somebody comes back to me afterwards and says, it took me half an hour to work that out. So let's start with the basics. What is social selling and what is it not?
Okay. So we see social selling, and I'm going to read this off one of our slides. It's about using your presence and behavior on social media to build influence, make connections, grow relationship and trust, which lead to conversation and commercial interaction. The key thing there is that what we're doing in sales is that we're building conversations, because what you sell and what I sell requires us to have a conversation. So the mistake that a lot of people make is this is about connections, or this is about posting content, or this is about video. It's not. What we're doing is that whatever we do on social media, we need a strategy which drives ultimately to get conversations. And why do we want conversations? Because conversations create sales. And sales create revenue, which is the point of this podcast. So, we're in the business of, likes and comments, kind of interesting, but we're in the business of driving revenue for businesses using social.
Love that. And we kind of touched on two things, social selling and digital transformation in sales. So I'm just going to do a similar sort of thing. So digital transformation in sales is happening. We're in it. We're many of us, it's probably been happening for the last 15, 20 years at a gradual pace, but it feels like the last 5 years, it's gone faster than ever. Just give me your take on that. So, when did you start to talk to people about this, and what's the journey been like for you? Was it the last 7 years since you started?
Yes. So my background is I'm a salesperson. I've been in sales for 25 years. My manager 12 years ago basically said, you need to get onto social media. That's where it's at. And I kind of resisted for 6 months and then got onto Twitter, and then decided I actually wanted to do this rather than selling accounting systems. And to answer your question, we found the ROI in social selling 7 years ago. I wrote a blog called How to Get 10 C-Level Meetings a Week Using Twitter, which is on my LinkedIn profile if people want to look. It's free to access. So the ROI was proven 7 years ago, and then I went and wrote the book, etc. But what we've seen is what I still see to today is this resistance where people go, well, I did this 20 years ago. Well, yeah, you used a fax and a Sony Walkman 20 years ago, and now you don't. I mean, I do know that some people still use faxes, but you don't, it's like, why are you still hanging on to, email marketing is from the 1990s. It's 30-year-old technology. It was bought out before a lot of people who were using it were born. And cold calling, is 40, 50-year-old technology. And what we're seeing is that the ability to get hold of people using those formats, getting less and less and less. It's now a 98%. The data says it's a 98% failure rate. And what we're seeing is the ability to get hold of social so simple. But to go back to your question, what isn't social selling? It's not connecting with people and then pitching. Or it's not pitching on social media. And this is the other mistake that people make, is that the way that sales has come about is that what we did when we cold called and what we do when we send spam emails is that we interrupt and pitch. So I phone you up, I interrupt your day, and what I do is I pitch to you. Or I send you an email and I interrupt your inbox, and what I do is pitch to you. It's called interruption marketing. And that isn't social. Social is social. So the best example is I drive down to Exeter tonight, stay overnight, I'm going to pick you up tomorrow, and I'm going to drive you to a place where all your prospects hang out. And you can stay there all day. You can stay there for half an hour or an hour, but you can stay there all day. What are you going to do when you walk in the room? Well, you're going to probably go and get a cup of tea or coffee. I'm a tea person myself. You look like a coffee person, but you're going to go up to somebody and say, "Hi, how you doing? I've not lived in Exeter very long. What do you do? Where are you? What's your business?" And you have a conversation. And that is what we do on social media. It's about having conversations. I do know that people get a result for connecting and pitching on social media, but you won't. But the results that you get are infinitesimally small than if you actually do and have conversations, because conversations create sales.
Very interesting. There's a couple of points in what you just said there that I'd like to pick out and just dig into, if it's okay. I can't help but be intrigued by your how to get 10 C-level meetings a week using Twitter.
Yeah, I wrote that 7 years ago, Owen.
Amazing. Can you just give us a synopsis?
Yeah, it's about there's three things that you need to do on social. One is that you need to have a buyer-centric profile. So this isn't, remember, this is even though you're a salesperson, this isn't about you, this is about the buyer. And we know from the research that buyers are using social media to look for your product and service. What we do when we go to Google is we're generally looking for facts. I'm looking for a curry house in the Teddington area or something like that. What we're doing with social media is that we're using it as a way to solve business problems. So we know that people are searching for your product and service. And what we also know is that people don't like salespeople. So if you present yourself as a CV, well, first of all, if your LinkedIn profile is a CV, it means you're looking for a job. So, and everybody can remember, there's 840 million people on LinkedIn, and we can all see that you're looking for a job. What you need to do is you need to position yourself as somebody that the buyer is going to be interested in. That you're going to be a person that can help them. Because what are we looking for? If we're going to spend $100,000 on a new accounting system, we're not going to do it. We're not going to go with some fly-by-night person. We're going to look for somebody that's going to help us.
Yeah.
The second thing that you need to have is a network. So you need to be connected to the people that you want to influence. Now, BMW is one of our clients. They have 100,000 people. Having one connection or 10 connections isn't good enough. You need to have more than that. And it may be 100, it may be 1,000, it may be 10,000, I don't know. But, you need to have a network, because these people, what they'll do is that they'll start seeing you and seeing your influence. The third thing that you need is content. You need to have content just like this, written blogs, video, podcast, where people will see that and go, that person looks interesting. Yeah. And all we're doing on the getting the 10, how do we get 10 C-level meetings by using Twitter, is what we're doing is that we're picking up maybe what we're doing on LinkedIn and we're moving that onto Twitter. And we talk about salespeople having digital conversations and walking digital corridors. So it's not good enough anymore just to be on LinkedIn. We need to understand how to use Twitter and how to use Instagram, because these are the digital corridors that we have to walk. So I think I used an example in that particular blog is that the person that I wrote it about, they were looking for a particular individual and they weren't on LinkedIn, but they were on Instagram.
Yeah.
And what they did was that the person on Instagram was they were taking their 2 Labradors for a walk in the park, and they posted pictures of that. And immediately what they did was that they used that as a way of having a conversation, not salesy, because actually there's a psychological condition that we have where we don't like sales reach out. There's a certain psychological condition called persuasion reactance. If you Google it, you'll see it, which is where we actually have a negative reaction to people coming and trying to sell us stuff.
Yeah.
And what happens is that what they did was that they were using Twitter as the way to go out and have a conversation. They had great content, not brochures and not brochureware and not articles that say buy my product because it's great, because we can get that on your website. Yeah. We're not interested in that as a buyer. We're looking for insight. We're looking to be entertained, just like this podcast here. This is about entertainment. This is about providing education to people. And that was the basis of that blog, and still is the same way that people are selling. We've probably got a little bit more, or we have got a little bit more intricate in the way that we work, but ultimately it's the same thing. You need to position yourself for the buyer, you need to have a network, and you need to have content that people consume that they will find interesting.
I'm interested to get your opinion on something, and I said I had 2 points. I'm going to come back to the second because you've said something else that's made me curious. So in the last, let's say 3 years, give or take a year either way, I've seen a consistent increase in content on LinkedIn that is more personal, and we see the pessimists say, "Oh, this isn't Facebook," and we see other people embracing it, doing it, and letting us into their world as a human being. Now, I'm a big fan of that. My personal opinion is, if I'm going to do business with somebody, I want to know something about them. I want to be able to like them, trust, and know them as a human being. And I think there's value in it. But I can see the other side of the fence, which is, look, if I want to see pictures of your dog and your food, I can go to Facebook or Instagram. What's your take on that?
I think you nailed it, which is that if you want to do business with people, you want to see who you're doing business with. It's not written down anywhere that LinkedIn is a particular site for this, and in fact, if you look at the LinkedIn terms and conditions, they actually talk about it being a social platform, and social is about all aspects. So we talk about live content, so we don't talk about personal or business. It's about life. No, so you could post, here I am at a conference. Is that professional? Is that unprofessional? Here am I outside a conference. Is that professional? Is that, here I am? Am I taking? There's a lake, and I'm doing some rowing on a boat, and I'm outside a conference. At which point does it become? Which point does it become?
This sounds great.
At which point does it become personal? And which is it? Every content is live content. And the thing that we often say, we get people coming to us and saying, so we do an introductory presentation for people if they don't understand, and we walk them through all of our case studies, and we say, this is what Cyberhawk are doing, this is what BMW are doing, and we go through and explain what the business benefit and the revenue that they're generating from this. And one of the things that we do is that we share a particular post from one of our resellers and partners, which is where they put out a post of that particular person and his son, and they were at the beach, and from that post they got 6 C-level meetings. They were able to they got 2 proposals, and they got 1 piece of business. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm in the business of creating pipeline and revenue, and why would I not put out posts that are creating me pipeline and revenue? I don't understand it. And what we know from research is that people come to social media to be social. They don't come to social media to read brochures. As I said, you can read that on someone's website. In fact, billions of dollars have been spent buying software systems to push brochures out on social media that A, everybody ignores, and B, you're training the algorithm to ignore you. So all these $1 billion in employee advocacy tools, they're just wasting their time and they're wasting their money.
Yeah.
And what they need to do is actually switch it off for a month and see if it actually makes a difference. and what they need to do is empower their sales team to be authentic and talk authentic and have conversations, just as we've done at networking events, just as we do at business meetings. But what we're doing, rather than doing it in an analog form, we're doing it from a digital perspective. Sorry, Owen, I know you got some more questions.
No, you keep going. The whole idea is we're listening to you and learning from you. So the more you're talking, the better. And the less I have to think about questions. So more than happy for you to keep going. Let's just talk about that content piece for a minute, because we talked about, your conference analogy of rowing outside the conference, and we've talked about, somebody with his son and all that sort of stuff. So what content do you see now in 2022 is having the biggest impact? What stuff is working? What stuff is not working so well?
I think that so we take content as a strategy. You need to look at it from that. It's, if you start basically posting stuff out tactically, it won't get you very far. You need to understand that the different content will create you different things. So, for example, when I come to your LinkedIn profile, within 20 seconds, I need to understand what you're about. What do you stand for? Because as a buyer, that's what I'm doing. I'm not looking for a brochure. I'm not looking for you to say we're the second generation ecosystem, customer experience, whatever. Because it's what I'm looking for is for an individual that I'm going to have a conversation with, I'm going to build a relationship with, I'm going to buy something. And all of that corporate bullshit needs to be given back to marketing and say, thanks very much, but we're going to do this because we need to be generating some revenue. And what the salespeople need to do is be able to understand how they can walk on digitally, have conversations, start conversations, and use content in different ways. Now, you will find that written content, short form written content, will be interesting to some people. Video content will be interesting to other people, because people will consume content in different ways. So it's not saying, I'm not going to come here and say video is the thing that you need to do, because actually, if you, anybody who's watching this, please come to my LinkedIn profile and check out what I do. We're running, I do face to camera video. I do written blogs. I do live streams. I run my own podcast. And all of these things are there to generate conversations and get me seen in other people's networks. I come on this podcast because I want to be seen by your network, Owen. And you invite me on because you want to be seen in my network. That's what the game is. And what we're seeing, certainly even from salespeople, I have a person who works for me, and he runs a live stream every Thursday morning called the Breakfast Burrito. And that's about creating community. But also what it does is it's one of the biggest lead generators for him. And what it is if anybody who remembers maybe Chris Evans or The Breakfast Show or Chris Moyles, that sort of zoo approach in terms of the discussion. So there's three of them and they're interacting, and we have basically the audience are interacting on the live stream, and you can see the comments coming in, and then they start talking to each other. That is just a massive way of generating leads and revenue, not just for him, but also in the community that are having those discussions. And these are some of the things that we're seeing. Certainly live streaming is something that we're seeing is really taken off over the last 12 months, as long as you do it properly. We did see a live stream from Gartner recently, which was all scripted. And it was like, and they didn't even look at they were going, the ecosystem of and it was like, and there was even comments going, this is just terrible. This it's just a sales pitch. And of course, people aren't stupid. People, we've all been around. We've all got mobile phones. We're all on social media. We know when someone's bullshitting. And the fact that they think that they can get away with it, it beggars belief. But so live streaming is we've been using now for 12 months, and we're working with clients on it, and it's really transforming the way that people are able, therefore, to. We talk a lot about digital dominance, coming in and basically owning the digital space, owning the share of voice for whatever your product or your vertical is. And we've got organizations that are completely wiped out. So Cyberhawk, for example, is a drones company. They completely own the drones conversation, and it's a 100 person business. It's a small business, but they're totally owning the conversation out on digital. And this is transforming, or using content as a way of transforming and getting the revenue and the leads and the stuff that you want.
Well, when we talk about content, one of the things I notice is that the great content producers, whether it be personal brand or a company brand, albeit much harder, they've got a clear personality. So, you know, when I think about the people that I follow, that I admire, some of them have been on this podcast, I can define them as a person. I can clearly kind of say this is what they stand for, and this is a. Do you find that, and some of them are more edgy, harder, you know, they're a bit more, you know, they're a bit risque in what they might say, and they've got strong opinions. Others are a lot warmer, a lot nicer, a lot more agreeable, let's say. And I don't think there's a right or a wrong, and I admire those people for different reasons. Are you seeing certain personality types shine through now? Are you seeing people really nail it that have got certain things in common, or do all things work if done with authenticity and you know, if there's something to back it up?
I think you need to be yourself, and I think you you know, it's no good coming on and being something that you're not. You need to be who you are. And I think that most people, if you read the research about what is it that the modern buyer is looking for in terms of content, there was a Demand Tech piece of research out recently, and that what people are looking for is, they're looking for an opinion. They're looking for you to take a stand. They're looking for you to actually say, this is not just what I stand for, but this is the way that we see that the business is going. And we do that a lot in terms of the way that our particular worldview. And I think that you will get people saying, yeah, but that's not what I'm about. Yeah. And that's fine. But quite often the people that are saying that's not what I'm about is because they're actually awkward socially in real life, not just digital.
Yeah.
And it's just like a bit like in the old days when I was cold calling, there was people that were good at cold calling because they had the personality for it. Yeah. And the people that were bad at cold calling because they didn't have the personality for it. You know, I was always I didn't use scripts. I just got on the phone and just talked to people. And I think we're seeing that in social and digital. And we will find that there are some people that are not that don't have the capability and the skill to sell in a digital world. And certainly we're seeing that. We're seeing this movement. Well, we've been seeing this now for 2 or 3 years, where people are basically being digital, and then people are leaving and they're going to analog companies. And we're seeing these clumps of analog people basically clumping together. So I'll give you an example. I'm old enough to remember when we used to have a sales administrator. We didn't do our own typing, and because with the advent of PCs, we were said, we're going to now, Mr. Salespeople, you need to do your own typing. 25% of the salespeople said, I don't do my own typing. I have a sales administrator. Who do you think I am? I've got customer meetings to go for. I don't have time for typing. Of course, we think this is hilarious because we all do our own typing. It's like what we do every day. But when the sales administrator got made redundant, they all left and they went to companies that were actually, that don't exist anymore. Yeah. And what we're seeing is this thing taking place where people are either grasping and understanding that they move to digital, or they're going to analog, and they're making that move. And you know, we'll see what happens with those companies.
Yeah, absolutely, very interesting. Do you find there's a sector trend there? So I'm guessing there are sectors that SaaS is a great example, is embracing it and selling digitally as a default, and then I'm guessing you've got, you know, I'm going to go manufacturing as an example, that might be a little bit more likely to stick in analog for longer, / forever?
We actually don't see a sector. In fact, we don't see, we're not seeing high tech embracing digital. What we're seeing is that we see high tech embracing spamming, and high tech probably getting internal people who don't, if you look, you can see whether somebody is digital by looking at their LinkedIn profile. Yeah. And if they're not digital, then why are you getting them to teach people to be digital? Because they're not digital. So you don't get, zero input is a zero output.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing is that, in fact, we're actually seeing manufacturing companies. We have a company called Display Technologies, who are embracing digital because they understand that that's what they need to do, and they need to move in that direction. Yeah. And what they're doing is that they've actually embraced it, and they're we're getting certain individuals. So, for example, one of the salespeople there has got his own hashtag. So if you search on hashtag babyface guru, here we are is one of our clients. He's a very technical person. And what he's doing is that he's using his technical skills and his personality to create his position on social, to have those conversations and to be digital. So we are seeing there being this movement of different organizations. I mean, we've seen a lot of organizations, especially in the States, basically are driving the sales team to basically it becomes a zero-sum game. Yeah. Because what they're using is that they're using scripts, and they're using, you phone them on this day, and you email them on this day, and they're basically, the salespeople are coming to us and saying, our clients are blocking us. Well, what do you mean? Well, they've blocked us on our phone, they've blocked us on social, they've blocked us on email. Why are you going to get hold of them? Well, we can't. It's because the buyers are not stupid. We know how to block people. Yeah. And a lot of those businesses have invested in those things and invested in what they say is best practice. Best practice means you're an average. You're the same as everybody else. That's not competitive advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. Quality versus quantity. One of my favorite debates in every part of sales. What's more important?
The important thing in your network is to have as wide and as varied network as you can have. The way that search works on LinkedIn is different from Google. On Google, what Google does is it goes out and indexes lots of content, and then you ask a question and it comes up with the content that it thinks is the most likely to answer that question. Yeah. On LinkedIn, it works differently because it's based on your network. So if a buyer is basically looking to buy something, you want to be as close to that person as you can. So, for example, Namos, which is one of our clients, they're a 120 person Oracle reseller. 2 weeks after they went through the training with me, there was a buyer out there. They were looking for somebody, and the buyer said, "You look interesting. Can you help me?" And that within a month then turned into a $2.6 million deal. They've also taken another £1 million out of that customer since then. And that's because what we did was that we got them to have the great profiles, but we also got them to build the networks so that they were close to those people. So what you'll find is that a lot of you can go to companies and they will buy you contacts, and in fact it doesn't really buy you anything, because what you want is what you're looking for is to turn your contacts into a network, and then turn that network into an audience. And so you get the opportunity to have about 200 connections a week on LinkedIn. Use them.
Yeah. So let me ask the same thing around content. So if you had the choice between, I don't know, let's say 1 or 2 high value pieces of content a week, and posting twice a day, but the quality's mediocre, which route would you go down?
Who's measuring that it's high quality?
Great question. You are.
Exactly, and you're not the right person to measure that. So I mean, I've been when I create content, if I write something that I don't think it quite works, I don't think it doesn't fit, or I haven't quite finished it, I store it away. Then when I'm on holiday, I basically put those out. So I've just come back from a week's holiday where I've put out what I thought was inferior quality content. I got more engagement on inferior quality content than I do on what I think is great. So, so first and foremost, you're not the judge of what is good content. The second thing I would say is that remember that if you don't put out content, you are invisible. So the question is, you know, how often do you want to be invisible to your prospects? Well, I don't want to be everyone. Well, there you go. And if you're on LinkedIn, don't put more posts out than once a day, because all it does is that you just cannibalize what you've done before, because it works on a series basis. But go back to, you need a strategy. You need to have different content. You need to have content that engages with people in different ways. And you know, that's one of the things that we teach people about.
Love that. You know, brilliant answer. Really, really strong answer. I think really got me thinking about it. And the one thing I strongly agree with in there, and I want to reiterate, is around that just put it out there piece, because I think in the early days when we were doing social, that I'm not a perfectionist, but we have perfectionists in the team. And, you know, I've always worked to the basis, I haven't got time to look at it, just post it, just get it out there. And you're right, it surprises you what does well and what doesn't. The stuff that you can spend ages on can do nothing. And on other times you put something out that you really aren't that confident in putting out, and it can fly. And I think it's a really great point to take away from today. Look, before we head towards, you know, we're heading towards the final straight on this, and I want to ask you a question back to your very first answer. So you talked about, you know, the analog way and cold calling and other strategies, and how social selling obviously is the strategy to go with. My question to you is, how much can it be an isolated strategy, a strategy that you rely on as your primary strategy? So we talk a lot about balanced outreach here. So, you know, we use the phone a hell of a lot. Would I ever run a campaign that's the phone and nothing else? No, absolutely. Would I ever run an email marketing campaign in isolation with nothing else blending into it? No. And I'd argue that it's the same with any channel, but it felt like what you were saying at the beginning, you were pretty confident that you can run with a social selling strategy and build your business around that. And I'm just really keen to get your thoughts on that. Is it something that you can just drive in isolation, or does it need other things blended in with it?
Yeah, we often get this as a question, because it generally is as a crutch that people want to lean on. You know, as a business, as you know, we're a social selling company. We're a digital transformation company. We have never cold called. We have never sent a spam email. We deleted our email database in 2018 to complete GDPR. We've never placed an advert because we don't have to. And you know, we've gone into organizations, you know, at Cyberhawk, for example, you know, they basically benchmarked us against an advertising campaign. They soon dropped that. Other companies, they benchmark us against, you know, cold calling or email, and they just gradually drop that, because what they recognize is that if you're doing it properly, and I'll emphasize that only I can say what properly is because it's my methodology, is that if you're using social selling properly, you don't need to do all the other things, because you're generating so much business. I mean, you know, if you take Cyberhawk again as an example, the number of SQLs that they wanted, it's triple what they basically set us as a target, and they're IPOing faster at a higher value because of the fact that they're doing this. And what we see is that as soon as people actually get it, and we usually see it in the training where you see that this aha moment where they go, oh my God, you mean this is what you get? And it's at that point where they go, why are we spending money on this stuff that's generating us nothing? So yeah, I am totally confident that a business can be, if you're using a proper sales methodology based around social, which is social centric, you don't need to use all that other stuff. You can cut all that stuff, or you can spend it on training more people, because what we always find is once we actually train the salespeople, we then move on to training human resources people, because you know, I've got customers that, you know, there's this whole debate about going to the 4-day week. We don't need to go to a 4-day week, because if you're running your processes on social, you actually have people wanting to come and work for you. You don't have people leaving you and you have people coming to work for you. You become the employer of choice. So what happens is you move from sales into HR and then you move into procurement. And that, again, changes the game, because what you're able to do is look at the different suppliers. And I don't want to go into the impact of supply chain because we're talking about sales today. But what we're doing is that we're using social across the whole of the organization to make it more efficient and make it more effective. And once you actually see social as the core to that, to basically to the question, then what happens is that people see that as and they invest in it.
Love that answer. Thanks, Tim. Look, we're heading towards the end. I'm keen to give you the opportunity, just as we would with all of our guests, to let us know who can you help, who should be getting in touch with DLA Ignite or with yourself, and how can they do so?
So we help organizations who want to transform their sales team to digital. You can contact me, or you can contact anybody within DLA Ignite. We have a whole bunch of partners. We are global. We've got people in the States. We've got people all around the world, people in South America. And one final thing, which is that we're now authorized, our program is now authorized through the Institute of Sales Professionals, that people can get a social selling qualification. It's the only qualification that you can get on social selling in the world, and it's backed by the trade body, which is the ISP. So that can work for sales leaders because they know they're getting the right people into the organization, and it also can work for salespeople because it means that they're going to transfer, and they've got transferable skills.
Fantastic. Tim, thank you so much.
Thank you, Owen.
Enjoyed chatting with you. Learned a lot from what you've talked about as well, and some really good reminders for us as well. So thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome, Owen. Good to talk.
Bye-bye.
Bye.